Hello, my name is Brandon, the Algebra Guy. Today, as you see on your screen, we will be discussing multiplying decimals, breaking it down step by step. So you see two problems here that give you a good idea of the type of work that we'll be doing. If you're at any way shaky on these problems, stay tuned so you can figure out how to do them. All right, so let's get to our questions that we always go over. First, how do we multiply decimals? How do we know where to place the decimal for our answer at the end? And how do we multiply by powers of 10? All very important topics. Let's get to it. So here's some examples. So I want you to start to see if you can find a pattern. Let's look at this first one right now. 0.3 times 0.7. Think about it. You can actually look at these as fractions. This is in a tenths place, 3/10. So you can put 3 over 10 and 7/10. So you can put 7 over 10. If you multiply these, remember we multiply straight across. The numerator to the numerator gives us 21. And the denominator to the denominator gives us 100. So that's 21 over 100. And we know that that's going to equal 0.21 because 21 hundredths looks like that as a decimal. Now look at this next one and see if you can find the pattern. We can multiply 0.2 times 0.46. Turn those into decimals. This is a tenths place. And 46 hundredths like this. Well, we multiply straight across, it gives us 92. 10 times 100 gives us 1,000, and 0.092 because the 2 is in the thousands place. Do you see any patterns? Now, if you don't feel discouraged. It's kind of tough because there's only two examples. But one of the things I wanted you to notice is this 3 is one place away from the decimal. This 7 is one place from the decimal. And look at our answer. It's a total of 2 places away from the decimal. And look at our other problem. 1 place away, 2 places, and our answer is 1, 2, 3 places. So what's the pattern? Well, when we multiply decimals, we can add the total number of places that we see in each number. And we'll model that as we go through. So, for instance, let's look at this one. How do we work decimals? How do we multiply decimals? So I wrote out 5 steps here you want to think about, and you don't really need to write out these steps, but in starting off is good. So step 1, determine the sign of the product. So we have positive times a positive. That's going to be a positive. So check, we did that. Write the numbers in vertical format, lining up the numbers on the right. So let's write it in vertical format. 4.075. And yes, I'm writing the bigger number on top. It's easier to multiply that way because multiplication is what we call commutative, meaning it doesn't matter which order because 3 times 2 is equal to 2 times 3. So I'm going to put the 4.075 on top times 3.9. So I wrote those vertically. Notice I didn't have to line the decimals up as if I were adding decimals with the like we did with the cost of the sandwich and water bottle. So we'll add the decimals in such a way that the decimals are lined up, but not with multiplication. So we write the numbers in vertical format, lining up the numbers on the right. So we line them up on the right, so there's nothing, so to make sure we have some numbers here. And then we multiply the numbers as if they were whole numbers. Temporarily, we're going to ignore the decimals for right now. So let's just multiply as if we have no decimals. 9 times 4 is 45. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 4 is 67. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 6 is 6. And 9 times 4 is 36. I'm going to erase those top numbers. So we don't need this. Goodbye. All right, so let's keep it going with our 3 now. So we usually put some kind of 0 or a placeholder there. 3 times 5 is 5. 1. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. 22. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12. So let me make sure I did that. 5, 1, 2, yeah. All right, so now we add up everything, right? So we're ignoring our decimal still. 5, this is 12. Give us 9, 8, 5, and 1. So we multiply the numbers as if the whole number is temporarily ignoring the decimal. Now we did that one. We did step 2. Place the decimal point where? The number of decimal places in the product is the sum of the number of places, decimal places in the factors. If needed, use zeros as placeholder. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 1 here. So we have a total of 4 decimal places. So guess where we're going to put our decimal? We're going to start at the end here, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Because we have to add 3 and 4. So our actual number is 15.8925. And you always want to kind of check your answer, right? Because we have 4 times 3, which is 12. So we know it's going to be a little bit more than 12 because these numbers are a little bit bigger than 12. So getting a 15 makes sense. Matter of fact, this is more like a 4, right? So this 4 times 4 is about 16. So we expect to get something like that. So just kind of eyeball it, because if you put a decimal here, 158, you should know, hold on, something that can't be right. 4 and 3 that can't be any close, can't be that close. So that's how we're going to multiply decimals. You don't have to line up the decimals, but you do have to count the places and get the total before you get your final answer. Let's do another problem. All right, so what about this one here? So keeping in mind our steps, we're going to line it up. First, we're going to determine what the sign is going to be. I notice I have a negative times a positive. What is that going to equal? So a negative number times a positive, we know that our answer is ultimately going to be, I'm just going to write down here, we know we're going to have a negative. Now I'm going to set it up so that it's vertical, like we're multiplying a regular number. 8.2. And we're just going to go ahead and multiply. 9 times 2 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. 8 times 9, I'm going to erase this so I don't get messed up on that. 8 times 9 is 7, oh, put a 0 there. 8 times 9 is 72. 7 goes here. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 7 is 15. With a 1 there, 8 times 5 is 40, plus 1 is 41. What does that give us? 8 and 0 is 8, 5, 5, 2, 4. Where does the decimal go? Do you remember how to find it? So I'm hoping you say we're going to count. There's 2 there, and there's 1 here. So there's a total of 3 spaces. So I need to start at the back and go 1, 2, 3. So I know my final answer is going to be negative, because now remember it was supposed to be negative 42.558. And there you go. That's how you do it. All right, what about this guy here? How do we multiply that? Doesn't look too fun, but it's going to be the same way. We're going to take first of all, our sign is going to be positive, so I'm not going to write anything. I'm just going to go ahead and start multiplying. 0, 4, 5 times 0.03. All right, so now let's just start multiplying. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, and 3 times 0 is 0. So we don't have to put a 0 there, it's just 0. I'm going to erase my little remainders up there. And do it again. 0 times 5 is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So we can see that all these are going to give me 0, so this is all I need. All I need is this 135, because 0 times all this is just going to add up to 0, 0, 0, 0, and then this 0 is going to add up to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So it doesn't matter, those steps right there, because this is just going to give me 0. So I can go ahead and figure out what this one is by counting the decimal places. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 decimal places, and 1, 2, 2 decimal places. So I start at the back and I count 1, 2, 3. Oh no, I ran out of spaces, but we need 5. We're just going to keep on going. 4, 5, and there's a decimal here. What am I going to do with this space here? I hope you said it. We're going to put zeros there, right? So 0, 0 goes in those 2 spaces. 1, 3, 5. Let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So this is our answer. So sometimes you will have to add zeros to make up for those places that are blank because of how we move the decimal. In many fields, especially in sciences, it is common to multiply decimals by powers of 10. So this is a big deal, especially when you get into scientific notation. You have really big numbers or really small numbers. You'll hear the math talk about something times 10 to the power of this. So let's see what happens when we multiply 1.9436 by some powers of 10. So I want you to look at these. We multiplied this first one by 10, and this is another power of 10, 10 times 10, and this is 10 times 10 times 10. What do you notice about the answers? What's the same? Well, all the digits, all the numbers are the same, right? What's different? Where the decimal is placed is different. Look, times 10 is here. We started here. Don't forget, 1.9436. Now we're at 19. We started at 1.946. Now we're at 194 after multiplying by 100. And we started still at 1.9. And now we're at 1,943. So what's changing? So all the numbers are actually the same. You can multiply by 10 very quickly in your head if you understand how this decimal is going to move. So what we've noticed is if you multiply by 10, you can just move the decimal one space to the right and get 19. By 100, 2 spaces. And of course by 1,000, 2, 3 spaces, and that's why we have it here. Now you can put in your calculator and double check if you need to see it, but that's the rule for multiplying by 10s. So 10 is 1 to the right, 2 to the right for 100, and so on, just like we talked about. Let's practice what we just said on this problem. Multiply 5.63 by factors of 10, 100, and 1,000. So 5.63 times 10, what is going to give me what? So without a calculator, we know that that's just a 10, so we're going to move it one place to the right. So that decimal is going to go here. It's going to make that number bigger to 56.3. And what about 100? So instead of 5.63, we multiply that by 100. Now we move it 2 spaces to the right, and that becomes 563. And there's a decimal if you want to write it. And last but not least, multiply by 1,000, 5.63 times 1,000. And we move it how many places? Well, there's 3 zeros. That's easy to remember to move it 1, 2, 3. So, and again, this is a situation where I have a blank spot, so guess what I put there? You got it. We're going to put a 0 here, and this gives us 5,630. Now, you can put a decimal there at the end if you want. Normally, the decimal isn't written if there's no numbers after it, but you could if you want to. 5,630 is our answer. That's how you multiply by 10s. Let's do one more. 14.2 times 10. This is going to give us a 1 decimal place move to 142. So I'm just going to write this one out because hopefully we're getting it a little bit quicker. And I want to show you that you don't have to write everything and multiply it, but if you know these rules. By 100, you move it 2 spaces. So I know there's going to be a 0 there, so this is going to be 142, and there's a 0 here. So that becomes 1,420. And I think you get the point of what's going to happen next. This is going to move 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. So I need 2 zeros here. So this becomes 142, 0, 0, 14,000. How do we multiply decimals? How do we know where to place the decimals for our answer? And how do we multiply by powers of 10? All questions we've answered in this lesson. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Brandon Clayton, the Algebra Guy, and I will see you next lesson.